How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Donald Trump wrecking NATO in Brussels this morning. Today is Wednesday, July 11th, 2018. Trump went to Europe, spoke to NATO, more specifically Jens Stoltenberg, with a direct and specific message. And you got to see this. So I don't want to talk too much more right now. What I'm going to do right now is go ahead and roll the clip. After we get done with the clip, I'll talk about what was said right there, and then I'll talk about some things that were not said in this piece. This clip was taken from Trump's Twitter, so it shouldn't get copyright claimed or whatever. I'll place an extended version from Bloomberg in the box below, so you're able to see more of what he said in full detail. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
It's very sad when Germany makes a massive oil and gas deal with Russia, where you're supposed to be guarding against Russia, and Germany goes out and pays billions and billions of dollars a year to Russia. So we're protecting Germany, we're protecting France, we're protecting all of these countries, and then numerous of the countries go out and make a pipeline deal with Russia, where they're paying billions of dollars into the coffers of Russia. So we're supposed to protect you against Russia, but they're paying billions of dollars to Russia, and I think that's very inappropriate. And the former chancellor of Germany is the head of the pipeline company that's supplying the gas. Ultimately, Germany will have almost 70% of their country controlled by Russia with natural gas. So you tell me, is that appropriate? I mean, I've been complaining about this from the time I got in. It should have never been allowed to have happened. But Germany is totally controlled by Russia, because they were getting from 60 to 70% of their energy from Russia and a new pipeline. And you tell me if that's appropriate, because I think it's not. And I think it's a very bad thing for NATO, and I don't think it should have happened. And I think we have to talk to Germany about it. On top of that, Germany is just paying a little bit over 1%, whereas the United States, in actual numbers, is paying 4.2% of a much larger GDP. So I think that's inappropriate also. You know, we're protecting Germany, we're protecting France, we're protecting everybody, and yet we're paying a lot of money to protect. Now, this has been going on for decades. This has been brought up by other presidents, but other presidents never did anything about it, because I don't think they understood it, or they just didn't want to get involved. But I have to bring it up because I think it's very unfair to our country, it's very unfair to our taxpayer. And I think that these countries have to step it up, not over a 10-year period, they have to step it up immediately. Germany is a rich country. They talk about they're going to increase it a tiny bit by 2030. Well, they could increase it immediately tomorrow and have no problem. I don't think it's fair to the United States. So we're going to have to do something, because we're not going to put up with it. We can't put up with it, and it's inappropriate.
Okay, so you see what's going on there. Now, this was fantastic. I think he made a great point. Now, let's start from the very beginning. If you don't know what the purpose of NATO is, I'll explain. Basically, they are there to protect a certain number of European countries away from so-called Russian aggression. Basically, they don't want the Cold War to happen. They don't want the USSR to come back, because you got to understand, a lot of the Baltic states, places in Eastern Europe, they're kind of afraid of what Russia could do. Germany itself at one point was controlled partly by the Russians. Angela Merkel said that she lived under Soviet control in East Germany when she was a child. So these things are fairly recently, and the purpose of NATO is to defend against it. It might not necessarily be needed anymore, but regardless of what the situation is, that's their purpose. Now, it doesn't make any sense if we are to be protecting these European countries from Russia in NATO by paying a bunch of money, because that's one point that Trump made. We're paying almost 4%, I think about 3.5 or more percent of our total GDP to NATO every year to protect these European countries, while Germany pays 1% or a little bit more of their GDP. And their GDP is much lower than ours, so they're paying a much lower amount in general, first of all, because they're paying 1%, but also because they're paying less of a percentage of a lesser amount of money than we are. So that's unfair. Trump was saying, hey, you need to pay more money in your actual GDP towards NATO. Don't let us foot the whole bill for it, while at the same time you're engaging in pipeline deals with Russia. You're getting like 70% of your energy from Russia, which is why at one point, which was not shown in that clip right there, Trump basically said that Germany is a captive of Russia.
Why are countries in NATO, namely Germany, having a large percentage of their energy needs paid, to Russia and taken care of by Russia? Now, if you look at it, Germany is a captive of Russia because they got rid of their coal plants, they got rid of their nuclear. They're getting so much of the oil and gas from Russia.
If you are basically totally dependent upon Russia for your energy needs, they could pretty much control you. They could do whatever they want to you. Okay. And it doesn't make any sense when we're supposed to be paying 4% almost of our GDP to protect you against them. How does that make any sense? You are relying upon them for your energy. And one point that Trump made was that Germany gave up a lot of their means of production of energy. They gave up some of their coal, they gave up their nuclear, and they are heavily reliant upon Russia for their energy. And it doesn't make any sense. Now, one point that Jan Stoltenberg made in the extended version of this is that, well, during the Cold War, countries were still engaging in trade with Russia that are in Europe, but trade is not the same thing as energy. Energy is the thing that you need, and in the case of Russia and Germany, it's a one-way street rather than having trade, which is it's a give and take. It's not just, okay, I don't have any energy, I gotta have it from you, but at the same time, I'm telling the US to pay 4% of their GDP to protect us from you. It just doesn't make any sense. Furthermore, Germany has the ability to produce their own energy, and it's not like they have to rely on Russia, not only because they can produce their own energy, but also other countries which are neighboring to Germany, like Poland, don't take the energy from Russia. So how was Poland able to not rely upon Russia for the energy, but somehow Germany is? It doesn't make any sense. Now, of course, you had people that came out and said that, no, we're not controlled by Russia, all this, that, and the third. Angela Merkel released this statement. John Kerry released this statement, and I'll try to put that in the box, maybe even on the screen. He's talking about Trump said some really wild and irrational things, but are they wild? Are they irrational? Do they not make any sense? Because when I was listening to Trump speak, it made perfect sense to me. Why would you be paying, Germany that is, all these billions of dollars to Russia for your energy, while at the same time you're making the US pay billions to NATO to protect you from Russia? It's weird, it's inappropriate, it doesn't make any sense. Hopefully we're able to just get beyond that. My ultimate goal would be to have NATO abolished, or at least to have the US get out of NATO. Now, I know a lot of Europeans, when they hear me say that, they're kind of skittish because they know that Russia is right there. They know what happened fairly recently in history. They don't want that to happen again. But I'm seeing things like the pipeline deal between Germany and Russia. That right there kind of undermines the whole point of NATO. How are you so far in bed that you are dependent upon Russia if you're Germany, if you're worried about Russia coming in to take over at any given point? I mean, theoretically, they could do that right now because they control most of your energy. You know, that's a very important thing. If a foreign nation controls the means of your production, you're talking about food, energy, things that you need to have every day to survive, they can pretty much control you, which is why, again, Trump said that Germany is essentially a captive of Russia. Not all countries in Europe follow this model. Some countries in Europe understand what they're doing. Some don't. Maybe Germany thinks that it's okay what they're doing. At the same time, it does undermine NATO. So if Europe wants to have NATO there, then you can't have countries like Germany and others who are heavily in bed with Russia for their energy. Trade is one thing, but energy and food, when it's a one-way street and you don't have a balance in trade, now that's a problem. So that's pretty much all I got to say. What say you? Do you think that the European countries in NATO should contribute more to the pot? Even if Germany contributed 4% of the GDP, which I think Trump is calling for, I think he said 2%. Then he was like, nah, 4%. If they contribute 4% of their GDP. Would that be too much? And let's not forget, there's no European country with a higher GDP than US of A. So if they're paying the same amount of their GDP as us, it still won't be as much money as we pay. So if you want us to be there and carry the bulk of the expenses, or if you want us to be there and carry the largest percentage of the expenses cash wise, then don't do things like this, getting in bed with Russia when you want us to protect you from them. To me, it makes sense. Does it make sense to you? Is there anything that I'm missing here? Whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.